Hey there everyone, it's Jenn, the Board Game Librarian. I'm flipping some pages and pushing some cubes, but with a different kind of segment today. Welcome to my office here at work. It's kind of a glass fishbowl, so you're going to see patrons walking back and forth on either side of me. So welcome to the public library. Today, I'm going to be talking about what I do. And I've gotten so many questions over the years of being on the Dice Tower, and for folks who know me from my Instagram account or the other variety of places folks might know me from. My technical job is I am the head of reference and adult services for the Manchester Public Library in Manchester, Connecticut. It's 500,000 Manchesters in the US and across the world, but I'm in Connecticut. We're kind of a suburban urban community with 60,000 folks, very diverse community. We're a former mill town. Our industry in particular was on silk. We were known as the Silk City capital of at least the United States for a long while. Our silk was very famous. So I've done this job. I've worked at this library since 2014, and I've done games and gaming since 2015. If you followed me for any period of time, you know that I've been a gamer probably since 2010 when Matt and I, my husband, got together. And I'm a firm believer in bringing things to a library space where I'm passionate about them, because I think when you are passionate about something, other people follow you. So in 2015, Matt got the opportunity to teach War of the Ring, our favorite game, and Battle of Five Armies at Gen Con. And it was a really great opportunity, and I said, sure, great, let's go. And I said to my boss at the time, hey, I've been kind of thinking about bringing board games to this library, starting a game group here. What do you think about that? And I've always been very fortunate to have a very supportive boss who has generally loved most of my ideas that I've done here, and he was supportive. Hey, let's do it. But my catch at the time was I was going to try to do it pretty cheaply. So off I went to Gen Con with Matt. We taught so many rounds of War of the Ring, but it was a great experience. In the meanwhile, I brought my business card and went around to publishers and talked about gaming in libraries. So back in 2015, gaming in libraries was a much different kind of situation than it is now. A lot less libraries were doing it, and now, of course, many more are, which is amazing and fantastic for our hobby. Some of which I hope is due to the work that I've done over the years. I started gathering games, mostly donations at the time from publishers who were super generous. And we had our first board game group meeting in October 2015. I had a couple of premises that I wanted for this group here at my library. Being a female gamer, it was extremely important to me that females in our hobby have a space where they can come and feel comfortable and not be talked to like, oh, you're just with your partner, husband, father, brother, nephew, male companion that you're with at a game store, because I've personally had that happen to me and it's very annoying. I also wanted it to be a space for folks 18 to 35 because that's the age demographic I'm in, and traditionally millennials fall off library usage when they hit high school or they're in high school, college, and then they don't come back until they have children. They're doing careers, getting married, starting families, buying houses, they're in the military, whatever situation they're in. But that age range tends to fall off in terms of library usage. So I wanted young people back at the library and get them invested in the services that we have here. I also wanted this to be a space that was reflective of the very diverse community that I work for. And I wanted it to also be a safe space where, our diverse community could come and play games and feel safe and welcomed and it be inclusive. That was very important to me as well. So those are the principles that I started off with for our group. I get asked all the time about how I run my group here at our library. We meet once a month on a Saturday for 4.5 hours, and I run it almost like a mini convention. Unlike at an FLGS where you may have a game group meetup or an event of some sort where folks bring in their games or have already scheduled play times or people that they're playing with, I wanted this to be very free-flowing in that aspect. I wanted it to be an opportunity where people could come and intermingle with each other, meet new folks, and kind of really just try new things. So we started off with the premise that folks would be teaching games, that they're like demos, but you get to play the full game. So now we have anywhere from 5 to 6 games that are taught by my amazingly awesome team of volunteers that I've curated over the years, where they learn the game if they don't already. That's typically a game that they own. They bring it and they teach it to whatever group of folks sits down, whether it's 2 players or 6 players, and they may teach a game multiple times within a session. There's a couple of things with this that were logistical. I wanted it to be different than the FLGSs. Like, why come to the library instead of an FLGS? Well, you're being taught something. That to me is really one of the cornerstones of our game group, that you can come to the library with nothing. You can come just yourself. I don't really allow people to bring in their own games to play. That you come in, you sit down, and you are just taught something. So it takes away the hassle and haggle and frustration, embarrassment some people feel when they sit down to learn a game. That here we have our dedicated teacher who has learned it. You were just going to sit there and be taught a game, which is great. I also didn't want folks bringing in their own games because I was concerned about liability issues with food, coffee, soda, drinks. I didn't want someone's really bedazzled, let's say Return to Dark Tower, which has been a very expensive Kickstarter for, let's say, soda to be knocked over and for it to ruin the tower, right? I know it's guaranteed for 2 years. But those kinds of things. And 2, one of the things that's very important to me with gaming in libraries is access, equity, and inclusion, right? So my library, where we are, and in this community, and I'm going to talk about this a bit because it's very important to me, there's pockets of folks who 42% of them live below the poverty line. And, if I'm encouraging people to bring their own games and someone is in that economic bracket and they don't have anything to bring, I don't want people feeling shame or upset or any kind of other feeling. That we're all on an equal playing ground. No one is bringing anything, just themselves. You just have to be there and show up. And you're not required to bring anything or buy anything necessarily. So this is something that has worked out really well over the years. I have a really awesome team of teachers who teach things. We have been going strong since 2015, except for the pandemic when we didn't meet. And we have anywhere from 18 to 47 people who've shown up. Now, part of the key to our success is that I've teamed up with the Portal Gaming Store. For those of you who are podcast fans, you will recognize Portal Gaming Podcast, run by Brant, who is one of my volunteer teachers, and the owner, Brian, of the store. He and I have had a really awesome relationship from the very beginning where we partner together. Brian is one of my teachers sometimes. Brian has also brought in product to sell where, if we're teaching quacks, Brian will bring in the game and sometimes offer a discount for folks to purchase the game right then and there. Because I'm trying to encourage community partnerships, business building, and goodwill, really, trying to support our game store too, and really create like this great circle. where I'm referring folks up the street to purchase games too. Let's say they play a game here that they've checked out and they want to go purchase it somewhere. And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be Amazon. If you head up the street, and tell Brian I sent you, he might have that in stock. So that was also really important to me as well. But we've had publisher days, we've had Osprey here, we've had Restoration, Smirk and Dagger, other designers too. The Two-Ton Porcupine team are some of my favorites to have here. You would know them from Kapow. So really fostering a local community of gamers and local folks and making us a hub where people can feel comfortable to come and play games. So that's kind of the basis of the game group. Now, I get tons and tons of questions over and over and over again of the games and how they're circulated. So if you know me personally, or you've kind of guessed over the years, I'm a go big or go home kind of girl. Our board game collection here at my library, we started out with 125 circulating games. Now, that is pretty highly unusual. I wouldn't go over to your public library and say, hey, I heard a lot of libraries carry 125 games. No, that's very unusual. Again, I have a really great director who supports me in my go big and go homeness. So all of these games get processed, they get cataloged, meaning put into our computer system, so you, the patron, can come in with your valid library card and check them out. So why have circulating board games? Well, why not? Libraries are not just book bastions anymore. Books are still our biggest thing that we do, no doubt about it. Not ebooks, books are not dying out. Everyone was in a tizzy over that years ago with ebooks and e-audiobooks. No, we're fine. We're here. We're doing. It's great. It's amazing. I started the collection in 2017 in terms of circulating it, and I wasn't sure what my expectations were going to be when we put the games out for the public to come in and check out, but I was very surprised, I think. They've been immensely popular, which is great. I'm very blessed to have that be something that's so popular. But a lot of the people who come in and check out games are really casual gamers. They're families. They're not my hardcore, gamers, which is great. That, I think, is actually the most important part of this part that I'm telling you. That it's new gamers, people who were gamers and maybe didn't play a board game for a while, and they see the games here and they check them out. All of those things. My hardcore gamers do come in, they check out my Gaia project, they check out my Empires of the Void 2, they check out those things, they come in. But the vast majority of games that are checked out are what I categorize as easy medium. Party style games, lightweight, family style things. So what we're really doing here in a library setting, unlike an FLGS, is that we are really trying to build up a new crowd of folks who are not necessarily gamers, and we're encouraging that. Again, FLGSs are great, and I love the portal too, and but there are some FLGSs, and they're not super FL. They don't have the emphasis on the F there, right? Or people don't feel welcome, or for a variety of reasons. Some people would never step foot into a game store, right? But some people would step foot into a library instead. And one of those reasons could very potentially be cost, right? When you think about the cost of these board games, they are a luxury hobby. This is a luxury hobby. I think we forget that sometimes. And your average person may not be able to afford a brand new board game or a very expensive Kickstarter. So by allowing folks to check out board games at a library, you're stripping away those inequities and you're allowing everyone the same opportunity. I talk a lot about experiences and board games here when I'm doing this kind of spiel. And one of my biggest things that I say is, look, so in the community I work in, we could have a house that sells for $750,000. A very expensive house, right? And we can also have those people who live 42% below the poverty line. I want those people, both of those people, to have the same experience. When they come into the library, both people can check out a game that's like a Gaia project. Again, a very expensive game, or, something like Tidal Blades, which I have here, expensive games. And both can check them out and have a good experience. And everyone can enjoy them. That's really the beauty of what we do. When you think about what libraries are and should be, is, some folks will say we're one of the last few places on earth where we're pretty democratic. You can walk in the door and it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. We don't ask you questions about anything. You're welcomed. You're automatically welcomed here. And I know that in some libraries past, that wasn't always the case. But most of us now, that's one of our core ethics, that we believe in that. That's our thing. And we want everyone to have the same experience, no matter who you are, where you came from, what you believe in, any of those things. So this really applies to board games as well, too. So the board games here go out for 3 weeks. They can be renewed at our library, which is very unusual, just because we have such a large collection. I have about 600 board games in our library in children, teens, and adults. And that's over since 2017, kind of an evolution of the collection. Folks can put them on hold, but they have to pick them up here and return them here. We have an interstate delivery, and it just gives me the heebie-jeebies, them being returned elsewhere or being thrown in the book drop. Can't throw them in my book drop. They're giving me nightmares. So as an example, here is one of our games. We have our barcode. I'm going to point to everything in the wrong place. We have kind of what I call our legalese. Please return here. Don't put in the book drop. 15 cents a day, and our fines are going away soon too. And if they were donated or we purchased them with gift money. I also have on here one of my best inventions of how difficult the game is. I tell this story because it actually happened. One of our first games that I had in our collection was Dominant Species. Now, if you followed me a long time, I play all games, whether it's from Happy Salmon to the real chonky babies, right? I play all of it. But Dominant Species is one that I haven't touched. And this game kept going in and out and in and out and in and out. And I was going, why? This is Dominant Species. It's good. But it didn't fit the other things. It was the hardest game I had in my collection at the time, and everything else that was going out was the easy level. And if you know Dominant Species 2, you also know it has a ton of pieces. So sometimes when I went to count, and I'll get to that soon, I'd open up the box cover and it was like a horror show had happened. All 300 cubes would be all over the place, the cones, the cylinders. It was just a nightmare. It was terrible, utterly terrible. So my hypothesis on this was that children were coming up to this game on the shelf and they saw dinosaurs on the cover and they were like, "Mommy, dinosaurs!" And the parents, who didn't know any differently, they were not familiar with the GMT stuff on the back. And if you're a GMT fan, you know what I'm talking about. And they took it out. And then these poor parents got this game home, and it was like a nightmare, probably, in their house, right? I can't even imagine. So that's how we ended up with the difficulty system. I used the BGG weight, and then for each like 1 to 1.99, 2 to 2.99, etc., I have a color-coded system. So I'm matching patrons' expectations in terms of where they are and what games they want to check out. I don't want a patron who is at an easy level to check out games which are hard, because that you're not going to want to come back to check out stuff. You're not going to want to, you're going to be frustrated, you're going to be upset, you're going to be like, oh, this is terrible, I'm not going to want to come back. And we want you to come back and check out stuff a lot. That's what I want you to do. Take them home and enjoy them and keep coming back. It's the thing. So that's how I ended up with the difficulty rating. I'm going to point wrong every single time. It's great. It's fine. We also have on the inside, as I'm opening up, our inventory. So plain English. We're talking plain English here. I work in a community where many different languages are spoken, and I wanted things to be pretty easy to understand whether English was your first language or not. So there's no gamer language on our inventory list. So if a patron is looking at the rule book, it's going to have gamer terms on it, right? My average person who checks out games may not know what a meeple is, what a chit is. They don't know, and they probably don't care. But they're going to know what a pawn is. They're going to know what a cardboard piece is. So putting those things in layman's terms that anyone could check these out and know what's in this box. It's also great for us, and our primary use is for when things are returned. So every time I post on any sort of forum pictures of my library's games or things that we're doing, I have a lot of people who panic about the pieces or condition of stuff. So our process is that when games are checked out and brought back, they're immediately taken off of a patron's card. But every single game is counted. There are no exceptions to this. None. Because again, if you're talking about experiences, I want every patron to open these games for them to be as pristine as possible, so they all kind of feel like, hey, this is a new game. You're having a good experience, right? That all things are in their baggies, they're rubber banded if need be. But every single piece is in there, right? I mean, you wouldn't want to check out Season 5 of Downton Abbey, which has 6 discs in it, and have disc 3 missing, right? You just wouldn't do that. And we wouldn't do that on our end either. That's not part of our process. So everything is labeled in baggies, sometimes rubber banded if need be. And they're counted. There's no exceptions on that. I've seen some people talk about the weighing system, which is bunk. I don't like that. If you're a librarian watching, please don't do that. Because if you're not lifting the lid and looking at the condition of the games, that's a problem. If the most essential piece of the entire game is missing and it only weighs a minuscule amount and it's not going to show up on the scale, that's a problem. And then, like, this happened with our copy of Sushi Go, like sticky fingers and cards stuck together, and when we went to count them, they were so stuck together that they ripped. So we have to assess damage too. I say this to everyone. Everyone freaks out about this. 95% of board games that are returned with they're complete. That is a huge percentage. Huge percentage. So it's the other 5% that's kind of nebulous, right? Of the 5%, let's say 4%, we check the game back out to them, to a patron, we email them or call them, we know which piece is missing. Those 4% find the piece. Great. Most patrons are really super considerate about our games. They know how expensive they are and how kind of precious too. This is a precious service. It's the 1% that's a little wonky. I have to make judgment calls on pieces, if I can get replacement pieces, if I have stuff in how essential it is too. So that's how that works. So if you are a patron and your library does not have games, I want you to know that you can contact your library and ask. hey, I'm wondering if you have board games. And if they say no, be like, okay, sure. But what you can do is you can formulate a plan. I've helped people all across the world at this point formulate plans on how to approach their public library on getting board games in. And sometimes all patrons have to do is ask, because if a patron is looking for a service, they're probably not the only patron out in the community that is looking for this service as well. You know, they're probably just one of many. And sometimes that's all it takes, just asking. Formulating a plan to me is your best bet in terms of getting a service like this in your community. And I'll drop my email, hopefully right here. I highly encourage you to contact me and we can work on this together. It doesn't have to be hard. It can be super easy, but sometimes it's finding the right person on your library staff and connecting with them and asking those questions. Going to the right age group, you know, whether you're thinking children, teens, or adults, and doing it. Sometimes it'll require a little volunteering time on your end, or a teenager, if you're the public library offers teenagers volunteer hours, but it can be done. And libraries across the country are really embracing this. Back when I started in 2015, I was like, there weren't as many, but now there's way more. And some of it is because folks like you watching this video right now have asked their librarians for this service. And the more people that ask, the more the service can be not out of the ordinary. It can be quite ordinary, and that's what we want. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. Hopefully that explained a little what I do. If you've ever wondered why I'm the board game librarian, that's really, I am a board game librarian. It's part of my job here at work. It's a wonderful thing. And I'm happy to have helped as many people as I have over the years. Again, my sneaky thing is I want you to go back to your public library, especially now where so many across the country here in the US are having challenges with book banning. We need your support now more than ever. So if you believe in us and what we do, our mission, then we need you. We need you. Again, please feel free to contact me, and yeah, happy reading, happy gaming, and happy libraries. Thanks, everyone.